If you have ever heard anything about China, it must be the myth of Chinese eating dogs. Chinese servers on the internet, however, are always denying the myth. So, is it another propaganda with something Chinese trying to hide? Привет, Devilish, Andrew Bubbles here, and we are going to explore where the Chinese eat dogs. First of all, we need to understand that when we are talking about Chinese, it refers to a huge mixture, combined with people of different areas, ethnics, and cultures. And by the way, guys, you may know that if I'm using the discussion of the definition stuff, the answer to the question is a highly yes. And yes, there are some Chinese eating dogs. Well, others have never eaten or seen dogs eaten before, and both of them are telling the truth. Some Chinese do have extremely favor the dog meat and make it an ordinary dish. Look at the map. When I search Gou Rou, which means dog meat, there are so many sites where you can be accessible to dog meat directly. If ranked by province, it will be Guangxi, Heilongjiang, and Guangdong. And if ranked by ethnics, it will be Korean Chinese. Yes, that's Korean Chinese, and Bui people who is most famous for eating dog meat. And they also cook it in different ways, like in Guangxi and Guangdong. The most famous dog meat dish is boiled dog meat slices, which means I think you could tell from its name. By the way, when I was consulting the mighty large language model DeepSeek how to translate it to English, it highly recommends spiced blanked meat slices Korean style for it. Could establish a cultural connection. Maybe that's more like Korean style to the world, but for Korean Chinese, dog meat hot pot or soup may be more commonly mentioned. And for bui, they will keep guts or skins to add some special flavor. So as you can see, all of them have their special moves on dog meat. So maybe you are starting to wonder, why do these people come from different places or ethnics share the same interest of eating dogs? Actually, despite all differences, all the mentioned groups of Chinese people start to eat dog due to the lack of proteins. You know, China have a long history, documented more than 3,600 years, when we had no electricity to improve our productivity. Brought in food like tomato, that's easy to plant. Protein sources like ox, sheep are in low supply. Some of them are too sticky about the environment. Some of them are precious tools that you can treat as food. Here's a passage from Li Ji, the Book of Right. It's kind of like an unofficial law 2,000 years ago. And the passage is the right of eating animals.
诸侯无故不杀牛，大夫无故不杀羊，士无故不杀犬彘，庶人无故不食珍。
In English, it means, without sufficient cause, a prince did not kill an ox, nor a great officer a sheep, nor another officer a dog or a pig, nor a common person a delicate food. A level chain could be implied from that. Ox is most important. Sheep is second, but also very important. And dogs and pigs as cheapest. Obviously, ox can help plowing. Sheep could offer its fur. Dog could help guard the house. But if you don't have food or fur, you could easily die from starvation or cold. And then, guarding is not important anymore. So, if you want to intake some proteins, dogs or pigs will come into first consideration, and when time goes by, it becomes a daily food tradition that we witness nowadays. Besides these groups that take dogs as daily food, other Chinese might eat dogs for some superstitious reasons. A very common one is eating dogs at the beginning of winter, the 19th solar term of Chinese calendar. If we could take something of yang, which means hot, we can resist yin, which means cold. And dogs are believed as an animal of yang. Like it's said that dog could sense and inspire things of yin, like ghosts. by barking. And if you have watched some Hong Kong Jiangshi, Jiangshi is kind of like a hopping vampire, some Jiangshi movie, you must have seen the scene where the blood of bad dogs is used to exterminate Jiangshi. So, if its bark and blood is of so much young, its meat will be full of young too, right? So that's why Chinese who don't eat dogs daily will have a dog feast at the beginning of winter with their families, because they believe it will keep them warm from cold the whole winter. Here's a Chinese proverb about it: 立冬吃狗肉，暖身一整冬, which means eating dogs at the beginning warms your body the whole winter. And Chinese do have some strange superstitions about eating, like 以形补形, shape for shape, which means your pet will be healed or empowered if you eat something similar to that. For example, it's believed that if you eat penis with other big animals like donkey, bear, or tiger, you will perform greatly during sex intercourse. If you are interested in that, please leave comments to let me know. Okay, so far, we have known that Chinese will eat dogs or even as daily food. But what's the relationship between human and dog in China? Will Chinese eat pet dogs? Just as I have stated last chapter, to Chinese of an old school mind, animals are more like tools instead of pets or families. And pets are also tools to a degree. Tools are used to deal with physical needs, and pets are tools that could meet mental needs. For example, I have petted a cat before, and many Chinese people older than 30 would say something like, "You must have that out of your loneliness," in an affirmative way, just like one said that cat lady. And many Chinese kids ask for a pet. The answer to cat usually is, "You can't spoil yourself. How could you spoil a pet?" So, will Chinese seize your dogs and cook them? No, because they think it's part of possession, it's in your charge. And if you still don't get the point, let me tell you a real story. I once saw a woman carrying her own dog to a restaurant of dog meat. But don't get it wrong, she did not go there to sell or kill her dog. She thought she was just taking a normal meal, just with her dog. So, to average Chinese, their own dog may mean something to themselves, but other dogs are just like animals. Animals could be raised as food. They want to draw a line between their own dog and other meat dogs, but could it be possible? Let's dive a little deeper. In China, with all dogs to be eaten are dogs that are bred especially. However, if you only judge by the map, there are like 10,000 dog meat restaurants. If each restaurant sells 3 dogs one day, there will be 30,000 dogs eaten one day, and around 10 million one year. Where do so many dogs come from? A lot of them coming from the dog meat breeding facility. Peck County is a big dog meat production county, which means it has made dog meat breeding a regional industry, but it only slaughters 100,000 dogs per year. If a big county that focuses on dog meat breeding could only produce meat of 100,000 dogs per year, how many big dog meat counties will be needed to provide enough dog meat to the whole country? There are two sides of opinions against each other. The first side is that the dog meat production from dog facility could not satisfy the meat need of eating at all. So many dogs are actually illegally sourced, like stealing dogs from rural areas or taking away stray dogs in the city. And many people in China have seen the track full of seized stray dogs, just like the dog catcher in the United States last century. And the second side is that capitalism needs stability. If the mass of dog meat relies on the stolen or seized dogs, the meat production could vary a lot. And plus, all the dog meat will be able to sell only after the official inspection, which means illegal sourced dogs could not pass at all. To be honest, I don't know which side is more right, because both of them make kind of sense, right? But later on, I found something that may help decide which side you should believe. The first thing is a reply on dog eating from State Council of China. It states very clear that China does not have the inspection about dog meat. You can find that on Chinese official site. The second thing is a report from China Youth Network. And I have to add that this report has been deleted by China Youth Network itself. But luckily I found the reposted version. The report is about the on-site visit to Pei County, the Mid-Dog County. The reporter found that every so-called dog meat breeding facilities were either closed or did not exist at all. And when the reporter asked the residents nearby, all of the replies were never heard of a nearby dog meat facility. And when the reporter talked to Ding Xinghu, a sophisticated meat dog breeder, he told the reporter that breeding a dog yourself will cost more than how much you can earn by selling a dog. So you could not even support yourselves by just breeding meat dogs. And many meat dog dealers said that most of the meat dogs were either stolen or bought by the original source. That's all I can tell you after collecting the open information. But according to that, we can still conclude that Chinese will eat others' pet dogs just without knowing. The whole dog meat ecosystem is actually more complex than what I have talked before. If you are interested, please leave your comments. Now let's come back to the eaters. In the last two chapters, I have talked about the reason why Chinese eat dogs and how Chinese feel like dogs or other pets. The third part is the present of transforming. Luckily, young generation are in transformation of the attitude toward pet animals. You may think that only people outside China are criticizing dog eating, but actually, the Western values are widely spread in China. And dog eating is now boycotted by young generation. Some young generation are just against the dog meat in their daily lives, and others even publish some online advocacy against dog eating tradition. And also, some cities have published the law against dog eating, many of which has a tradition of dog eating. Maybe after generations, eating dogs will not be a thing in China. Okay, so that's the main part of my video. In conclusion, not all Chinese eat dogs, and many Chinese are improving the situation, both in perspective of governments and individuals. And I hope this video could change the prejudice on Chinese. It's easy to say people that look different from your look are brutal, but you know what's really difficult is to understand each other, and only after that you can know the truth. Thank you for watching this video. Just feel free to share it with your friends, families, or even dogs. If you are interested about more facts about China, don't forget to subscribe. Have a nice day. Our common one, a dedicated food. They want to draw a line. They want to draw a line. Let's dive a little deeper. The reporter found that every so-called, there are like around 10,000 dog meat restaurants. If each restaurant sells 3 dogs 1 year,